Today, we'll debate is Windows better than Linux? With Sylvia, a corporate solutions architect, and Eli, a open source evangelist. They're two artificial intelligence personas. Please introduce yourselves.
Oh, you want an authentic Sylvia experience? Buckle up. Hey everyone, I'm Sylvia. Yes, the one who gets excited about system uptime and silky smooth single sign-on. Some people collect coins. I collect warranty renewals. If Excel had a fan club, I'd be running for president on a Surface Pro, of course. See, corporate life isn't about living dangerously, it's about living efficiently. Give me a desktop with familiar icons, not a terminal prompt asking for the 100th pseudo password. When I see the Windows logo at boot, my heart rate goes down, not up. Blue screens, ancient history. Legacy apps, bring them on. If Windows can't run it, it's probably a good candidate for the museum. So, while my debate opponents are compiling kernels at midnight, I'm sleeping soundly, knowing my fleet of machines is secure, supported, and playing nicely with printers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real peace of mind.
All right, let's do this. Hey, I'm Eli, open source enthusiast, command line connoisseur, and self-appointed emperor of terminal tabs. My spirit animal? Probably a penguin holding a soldering iron. You know those people who see a blue screen and panic? I see a kernel panic and get a little thrill, because it means I get to tinker. I like my software like I like my snacks. Open, free, and with a list of ingredients I can pronounce. Oh, I get locked in a gilded Windows cage when you can run with a wild herd of Linux distros. I dual boot for fun and install new desktop environments, like most people change their phone wallpapers. Sure, once in a while, my productivity involves 3 hours fixing my graphics drivers. But hey, that's 3 hours of pure undiluted learning, and maybe mild existential horror, but we don't talk about that. Look, at the end of the day, I don't just use my computer. My computer and I co-parent our operating system with lots of permission slips and sudo. And if you don't like it, the source code's right over there. Good luck storming the castle.
Thank you, guys. Sylvia and Eli will now present their 3 rounds of arguments.
Absolutely, Eli. You and your penguin posse have my respect, but here's the thing. When it comes to keeping the corporate world spinning, Windows is the engine under the hood. A well-oiled, reliable Volvo, not a hand-built go-kart with a turbo. There's a reason 90% of Fortune 500 companies run their show on Windows. Take Microsoft's decades-long commitment to backwards compatibility. I've literally witnessed 20-year-old Access databases soldier on across Windows upgrades, while their Linux counterparts were being memorialized on dusty CDs. Now, I love open-source adventures as much as the next caffeine addict. But if a law firm's billing software stops working, that's not a fun crash course in learning, that's lights out. Let's look at the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017. While Linux servers looked smug, the businesses that scrambled could call up a certified Windows engineer, download hotfixes, and rely on professional 24/7 support, something your penguin can't produce at 3 a.m. when payroll's on the line. Bottom line, familiarity, productivity, and lifelines matter in the real world. And Windows brings them in spades. Why, it's not glamorous, but you actually get to send the emails instead of just configuring the SMTP.
Sure, Sylvia, Volvo's great if you're content never looking under the hood. But let's talk about what happens when the engine starts making funny noises. Or, Windows decides it's time for a spontaneous update right before the big quarterly report. Productivity? Or like productivity roulette. Look, Microsoft's promise of backward compatibility is nice, unless security gets left in the rearview mirror. Remember WannaCry 2017? It spread because of an unpatched Windows vulnerability. Many companies ignored because updating Windows feels like playing Russian roulette with your workflow. And about that 24/7 support. Nothing like waiting in a ticket queue while your printer driver updates itself into oblivion. In contrast, Linux powers the backbone of the internet. Google, Amazon, the stock exchanges, they trust their uptimes and mission-critical workloads to Linux. When was the last time Twitter went down due to a failed Windows update? Never. That's when. At the end of the day, open source means you're never at the mercy of a single vendor's decisions, license hikes, or obsolescence plans disguised as progress. With Linux, if something breaks, you can fix it, or the community will at lightning speed without waiting for a marketing department to approve your bug fix.
Oh, Eli, I see you have brought out the boogeyman of surprise Windows updates and vendor lock-in. Classic moves. But let's not kid ourselves. The only roulette most business users want to play is at the office holiday party, not with their workflow. You talk about update roulette. But I've seen more people brick their Linux installs with sudo apt get upgrade than I've seen blue screens this decade. Oops, I broke my X server is basically a rite of passage in your world, isn't it? And let's not forget real support. You say Linux communities respond lightning fast? Absolutely. Assuming you can translate error logs into Stack Overflow haikus and sift through advice ranging from install Arch to recompile your kernel, obviously. In the Windows world, we call someone, get help, and move on with our lives. No need to brush up on Python just to print a PDF. You praise the uptimes of backend servers, but remember, the only time end users see a terminal they don't panic, they call HR. For them, the simple Windows start menu isn't a cage. It's a sanctuary. When grandma needs to Zoom or finance needs pivot tables, they want plug and play, not plug and pray. So if you want to reinvent the wheel every morning, Linux is great, but for everyone else, Windows isn't just better, it's sanity in an executable file.
Oh, Sylvia, it's cute you think clicking next a dozen times is a productivity superpower. In your world, troubleshooting means rebooting and hoping the spinning wheel of doom spins itself out of existence. Meanwhile, over here in Linux land, yes, sometimes we break things, but at least we're allowed to poke the engine, not just polish the hood. You call the Windows Start menu a sanctuary, maybe for people who enjoy seeing forced advertisements next to their solitaire app. And let's talk about support. AKA paying someone to read from a script that always ends with, have you tried turning it off and on again? You can keep your hotline? Well, take actual solutions over chatbot sympathy. And bricking Linux with sudo. Honestly, I'd rather risk a self-inflicted paper cut learning than wait for Redmond to approve a bug fix that gets bundled into Windows 13 Ultimate Pro Home Edition. Plus, when something breaks, at least I have thousands of volunteers and proper documentation. None of those cryptic error codes that even Bing gives up on. Bottom line, in Linux, you don't just use your computer, you command it. Windows is great if your highest ambition is software that works as long as you don't ask questions. For the rest of us, we're not praying. Our systems obey.
Eli, I applaud your willingness to command your computer. Most of us, though, just want to command it to work and then have it actually listen. Sure, troubleshooting in Windows might occasionally involve the time-honored reboot ritual, but at least it doesn't require reading a dissertation on dependency hell just to get my browser running. You say Windows support is paid and scripted. Fair enough, but I'd trust a mildly confused IT technician over a wild forum thread that starts with, I haven't tried this, but and ends with good luck. And as for advertisements in solitaire, I promise, most users are far too busy running real-world business tasks to be distracted by Candy Crush popping up. Though, admittedly, it does spice up accounting spreadsheets. Meanwhile, you champion thousands of volunteers, which is awesome unless you need help at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and the only person still awake is deep into customizing their Vim theme. Yes, open source is about freedom, but freedom to reboot into another distro every month is maybe not the stability most businesses are craving. So, in summary, Windows keeps things simple, supported, stable, and yes, sometimes a little boring, which, when you've got deadlines, is exactly the point. You can keep your command line roller coaster. Some of us prefer the scenic route with fewer detours and more done at the end of the day.
Sylvia, I admire your dedication to stability and your courage in trusting a world where the critical security update hits right in the middle of your Zoom presentation. But if boring means watching an hourglass every Patch Tuesday, count me out. You're right, Windows doesn't require a dissertation. Most of the time, it doesn't require anything, except agreeing to another mile-long EULA and letting Cortana help you find your own files. As for IT support, yes, some strangers on Linux forums might take you on a wild goose chase, but at least they've probably seen the problem before. Meanwhile, on Windows, the fix is usually either try again later or let's reinstall everything. And about Candy Crush, don't sell your users short. Nothing motivates the finance team like finding a bejeweled pop-up buried under their fiscal year spreadsheets. At least on Linux, I choose what's on my system. Imagine that. Computers running only what the user wants, not what the vendor's ad team thinks is fun. So in closing, with Linux, you get transparency, choice, and an empowered user base that controls their own destiny, or at least their own task manager. Let's not dress up predictability as progress. Real power is knowing what's under the hood, not just that it runs.
Thank you for your speeches. Someone from the audience will now make a question to Sylvia and Eli.
Hi, I am Priya, systems analyst by day, amateur retro gamer by night. Thanks for the lively debate. My question for Sylvia is, while you've highlighted Windows stability and user-friendliness in business environments, you haven't really mentioned innovation. How do you respond to the criticism that Windows tends to follow trends rather than set them, while Linux often leads in areas like containerization, automation, and rapid adoption of new technologies? Do you think the pace of innovation on Windows is enough to keep businesses competitive in a fast-changing tech landscape?
Great question, Priya. Love the retro gamer energy, by the way. You're right. The image of Windows as the safe option can make it seem a little, well, vanilla when it comes to bleeding-edge innovation. But here's the thing. Windows isn't just watching from the sidelines. Microsoft has actually been pretty nimble in recent years. Look at their push into Azure, embracing containers with native support for Docker and Kubernetes, and even integrating Ubuntu with Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL. That's not just following. That's bringing the new wave of tech to the broader business world in a way that's approachable and supportable. It's true Linux communities are usually first out of the gate on things like automation, serverless, or security tools. But let's not forget, for many businesses, especially those with critical established systems, the goal is smooth transitions, not wild leaps. Windows' strength is taking those innovations once they've matured and making them accessible to everyone, not just the folks with time to spare tinkering in the server room. To sum it up, Windows may not always wear the flashiest hat at the tech party, but once innovation proves its worth, Windows makes sure it's ready for the main stage, with the documentation, support, and integration that actually gets organizations moving forward. And for keeping businesses competitive without losing sleep, that's a smart play.
Thanks, Sylvia. That makes a lot of sense. Eli, your arguments focused a lot on freedom, customization, and community-driven support, which sounds awesome for techies and enthusiasts. But something I didn't hear much about is the practical side for non-technical users. How would you convince an average office worker, or, say, my retro gaming grandma, that Linux won't just add frustration or slow them down with too much complexity? Are there concrete examples where Linux has really succeeded with everyday, non-technical users?
Great question, Priya. I totally get it. It's easy to assume Linux is just for command-line devotees and hoodie-wearing sysadmins, but that's not the full picture anymore. First off, Linux has come a long way in user-friendliness. Distros like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and Elementary OS are designed specifically with everyday users in mind. The interfaces are clean, intuitive, and honestly, if you can navigate Windows or macOS, you can use these desktop environments. They come preloaded with all the basics: Office suites, LibreOffice, web browsers, email, media players, you name it. Concrete example, take Munich City Administration, which moved thousands of users to Linux desktops, the Linux project. Or closer to home, look at Chromebooks. Under the hood, they run a stripped-down Linux, and they're being used in schools by millions of kids and teachers, most of whom never even know they're using Linux. As for your retro gaming grandma, Linux built-in package managers and software centers make installing programs easy. No sifting through shady websites or forced toolbars. And if you want to relive those old games, tools like DiceboX, Lutris, and Steam's Proton make gaming shockingly accessible. Bottom line, the stereotype of Linux as just for techies is outdated. For everyday tasks and users who value stability and ease of use, without mystery toolbars or surprise reboots, modern Linux is not just possible, it's pleasant.
The debaters now have a minute to talk about something they regret not bringing up to the discussion.
Oh, I love this question. Priya, thanks for keeping us on our toes. Honestly, I regret not bringing up Clippy earlier. Say what you will about Microsoft Word's weird little assistant, but at least he tried to help, and he never told you to just recompile your kernel when you wanted to save a document. And Eli, look, you had some great points, but I'm still chuckling at the idea of telling a stressed-out marketing manager, don't worry. If you break anything, thousands of volunteers across 5 time zones will happily diagnose your error logs. I mean, that sounds less like tech support and more like submitting a wish to the internet genie. In all seriousness, though, this debate's shown me even more how much we need both the penguin and the window in our tech zoos.
Priya, you're really making us search our souls here. Honestly, I regret not bringing up Linux superpower, keeping old hardware alive. You haven't truly lived until you've turned a retired Windows XP laptop into a snappy Linux machine, thus foiling both e-waste and planned obsolescence in one go. That's my idea of heroics. Sorry, Sylvia, no capes included. And speaking of questionable arguments, Sylvia, I have to grin at your love affair with the Windows printer experience. Playing nicely with printers, Windows spools out more cryptic error codes than a secret agent, and at this point, we've all considered sacrificing a mouse to the printer gods. Meanwhile, at least on Linux, I know what's happening. Right before I give up and just go paperless. All jokes aside, I think this debate just proves there's a flavor for everyone. Sometimes you want the classic, sometimes you need a taste of something free range.
Thank you, folks. Let's go over to our judges.
Sylvia's scores: 1. Clarity and structure. 9 out of 10. Sylvia's arguments were consistently clear, well-organized, and easy to follow. She communicated complex business considerations in a way that was accessible even to non-technical listeners. Her answers always had a logical progression, often ending with memorable summaries. 2. Use of evidence and real-world examples. 8 out of 10. She regularly cited enterprise realities, like reliance on legacy apps, historic events, e.g., WannaCry, and concrete business scenarios. However, her innovation defense, while good, leaned more on recent developments and less on pioneering technologies, which left a small gap compared to ideal evidence depth. 3. Wit and engagement. 9 out of 10. Sylvia integrated snarky one-liners and playful jabs without resorting to rudeness, making her side highly relatable and entertaining. Her jokes about reboot rituals and Clippy brought levity and audience connection. Slight deduction for occasionally leaning on stereotypes of Linux complexity. Ella's scores: 1. Depth of technical insight. 9 out of 10. Eli demonstrated a deep understanding of Linux's strengths, highlighting openness, customization, and even back-end dominance. His discussion of open-source innovation and transparency was nuanced and lined with relevant industry examples. 2. Audience adaptation and addressing opponents' points. 8 out of 10. He made a good effort to address the concerns of non-technical users, offering examples like Chrome OS and Linux Mint. However, some points risked alienating less technical listeners by referencing command line culture or joking about existential horror. Funny, but didn't always bridge the gap for general audiences. 3. Humor and persuasiveness. 10 out of 10. Ella's delivery was quick, sardonic, and highly entertaining. His jokes about printer gods, hoodie-wearing sysadmins, and storming the castle with source code kept things lively. This humor never undercut his points. If anything, it enhanced his persuasive style and likability, especially in rebuttals. Both debaters performed excellently, each excelling in slightly different debate dimensions. Sylvia with structure and approachability, Eli with depth and wit.
What are your opinions about the debate? What would you like to see ICE debate next? Keep questioning.